Hi, happy Tuesday. Hopefully you're watching this on Tuesday. So to continue with our work looking at different theater forms around the world, we're actually going to be looking at Canada and looking at Canadian Indigenous theater. So of course, when we're talking about Indigenous theater, we are talking about Indigenous communities, First Nation communities across Canada, and there are over 600 different communities. So I've listed here just a small handful. Some you'll recognize, some might be completely new. The ones that are highlighted in yellow, you should definitely recognize because these are the communities on which the land or on the lands in which we occupy now. So you would hear these in the land acknowledgements that we hear every day at Bloor. So the Mississaugas of New Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Huron-Wendat, and the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. So a lot of these different communities are represented in the different works that we're going to be looking at today. And also keeping in mind, recognizing that a lot of the stories might be a little bit similar across the various Indigenous communities in Canada. So a lot of the roots, again, like I just mentioned, can be similar, but a lot of the roots, again, really stem, like other theater forms, from the oral storytelling tradition. So how stories are passed down from generation to generation, and also how they shift and change. So Indigenous theater is actually known to be, and storytelling is known to be the oldest literary genre in North America. So before the Europeans came and conquered what is now known to be Canada, the First Nations people were performing rituals and dramas as part of ceremonies and celebrations for hundreds and hundreds of years. So a lot of these celebrations involved singing, involved storytelling, drumming, masks, costumes. And of course, a lot of these forms have carried over into the actual more modern theatrical practices that are known to be Indigenous theater today. So this first video that I want you to check out, again, like I will be doing in most of the presentations that we are going to go through together, I'm not going to play the video for you, but I have linked it here below, and I would like you to go and explore this on your own. So this video, it's called Woman Dress, and it's by Thurza Cuthand. She's the person who you're going to hear speaking and who put this video together. Talks about one story, so the story of this person named Woman Dress, and it's a Cree story, and really the main focus is actually the idea of storytelling and how it passes from not only generation to generation, but through communities across Canada. So it's a little bit of a reason for why a lot of the stories can be quite similar. So this one's called Woman Dress. So across a lot of different forms of Indigenous theater, with all of the differences that there are some elements that are really core that you're going to see oftentimes throughout this genre. So looking at ideas of heritage, tradition, and language, and not only holding on to that heritage, tradition, and languages, but also unfortunately sometimes the loss, and moving forward, trying to maintain this in our modern landscape. Looking at mythology and legends as an origin for a lot of Indigenous theater and art, colonization and the ongoing conflict between Indigenous communities and the rest of Canada, environmental and land issues, and as well the experiences of Indigenous communities in Canada today. So looking at one different company in particular, so this is the ODA Theatre Company, and I wanted to bring light to this theatre company in particular. Go check it out, do some Googling on your own, but this theatre company is truly a trailblazer, a pioneer in what is known today to be more modern Indigenous theatre. So looking at the elements that we just really referenced, the ODA Theatre Company really is focused on taking and referencing the history and traditions of Indigenous communities and bringing it to light today. So their vision really, or their mission statement, or part of it, is our common vision is to tap into the dignity and richness of our Indigenous cultures across borders to build the bridge between the knowledge of our ancestors and the demands for the future. We want an expansion of the manifestations of Aboriginal art and that they be present more than ever. So I've linked below a very popular video, very popular piece of work from this theatre company and directed by Yves Siou Durand, who was not only a director working with the company, but he actually founded the company. So this work that he has created really focuses on the traditions and the heritage that he comes from. And again, bringing it light today, not always wanting to not only remember and understand, but also pay respect to where he got a lot of his theatre from. So some plays that I want to reference, and we're going to look at one in particular, and all three of these, and of course there are so many that are incredibly important, especially to Canadian Indigenous theatre, but these three I really wanted to bring attention to. They're beautiful, beautiful works. So the first one is Burning Visions by Mary Clements, and this story actually is all about, and focuses on the uranium that actually goes through a lot of the different Indigenous communities. So not only looking at uranium itself, but looking at the poison and even poisonous thoughts that unfortunately with the colonization of Canada trickled through a lot of different communities. The second one, Agokwe by Wawete Fobister, actually premiered in Toronto about 12 years ago at Buddies in Bad Times, if anyone's heard of Buddies in Bad Times. And this focuses, it's the one right here on the left, if you can see this, and it actually features it's a one-man show, and it talks about the LGBTQ plus community, and in this case, it's actually called Two-Spirited, so someone that doesn't only not fit with one specific gender, but that's also their preference as well. It's not specific to one gender. So it talks about those struggles with identity and coming into one's own identity in this Indigenous community. And the last one is called Res Sisters. And Res Sisters really is what puts modern day Indigenous theatre on the map. So Res Sisters is by Thompson Highway, and it's about some sisters that are living on a res, and they're trying to get off of their res, get off of the home that they were given, and actually go to Toronto and play what they call the Big Bingo. So here is one of the sisters, Mary Adele, and she's talking about this bingo, the biggest bingo in the world. So I'm not going to read it for you, but go over this, read this yourself, and it'll give you an idea of how this person is actually, or how this writer is actually writing this piece, and the importance of this big bingo, or the biggest bingo in the world, and maybe why they would actually want to get away from their home, from what they've known, to go to Toronto. Okay, so the real focus that we are going to be looking at today while we're looking at Indigenous theatre, because a lot of Indigenous theatre really does derive from these creation stories or origin stories. So creation stories, I think you've been looking at this, especially if you're in grade 9, been looking at this in your English classes. So a creation story is a symbolic narrative of how the world began or how animals first came to be on Earth, sometimes even reasons why animals or people are the way that they are. So it describes the earliest beginnings of the present world that we're in. And a lot of times you'll notice when you are reading them, when you're exploring them, that there's a more heightened or formal language that is used. You're not speaking like you would to your friend at lunch, but the actual word choice is very direct, is very specific, and is somewhat more formal to bring importance to the story that is being told. So 3 really popular stories about how the world was created and some first animals that were seen on Earth are first the Sky Woman. So this is a Haudenosaunee story, and this is where the Earth was actually created from the sky. So the different Iroquois speaking peoples tell it all slightly different, but essentially the world begins with this woman falling through a hole in the sky onto a turtle, and that's where Turtle Island or North America actually was created. The second is why the porcupine has quills, and this is a Anishinaabe story. And then the third one that I want you to go check out is how the raven stole the sun, which is incredibly popular. And you're going to see this appear across many Indigenous cultures and most prominent through the Tlingit and the Tahltan people. But again, the raven and the story of how the raven stole the sun is incredibly popular. You're going to see a lot of reference and some symbolism of ravens throughout a lot of Indigenous creation stories. So go to this website down here, thehistorymuseum.ca, and you will find these stories as well as a lot of other ones to go and read some on your own. So this was one that I also wanted to let you check out because you are going to be creating your own origin story and presenting it to us. So this one is called How the Coyote Got His Cunning. So like I mentioned before, sometimes it's how the earth was created or how animals were first seen on earth, but also sometimes it is actually those character traits that an animal or a person has and how that actually came to be. So this story is all about why a coyote is as cunning as they are. So it's about 3 minutes. I'm not going to play this for you, but the link is there. I'll put the links also in our Google Classroom so you can actually check that out and get some ideas using how the coyote got his cunning, as well as the other 3 stories from historymuseum.ca for you to also go check out to give you some reference, to give you some ideas for actually writing your own. So your task this week is writing and presenting your own creation myth. So before writing, go and check some creation myths to get some ideas. So of course, ones that I've already shared with you. So some Indigenous stories that I've already included in this video. But also you can look at Greek creation stories, Roman creation stories, North, Indian, Aztec, African. There's a lot of really fantastic African and Caribbean creation myths that I am very familiar with. If you want to shoot me a message, I can give you some that you can go look at. So when you are creating your own creation myth, these are the steps that I want you to take. All right. So step 1, choose something from nature as the subject for your myth. So you're not going to be choosing a television or a cell phone. You're going to be choosing something from nature. So it can be animal or it can be, a tree, a plant, even the sun or the moon or stars. Okay. Step 2, I want you to think about the qualities and purpose of your topic, of the subject you're going to be writing about. So for example, trees providing shade, sun providing light and warmth. All right. Step 3, you're going to actually start brainstorming how it might be created on a mythical level. So you're not going to be, you can if you want to, doing some of your own research, but again, using reference to some of the creation stories that you have searched already. You're actually going to be a little bit inventive about how this piece of nature was actually first created. So for example, blades of grass coming from a goddess in the sky after cutting her hair. So being creative to invent characters from your myth. Okay. It says event there. I'm going to change that in the final. It should be invent characters for your myth. Step 4, fill out the creation myth organizer. I'm going to show you that in a second to actually outline the setting, characters, beginning, middle, and end, all of that jazz. You're going to be very familiar with this when I show you. It's the classic story mountain with a few extra questions in there so you can actually focus on the idea of the creation myth. Step 5, of course, writing our story. And then step 6, recording our voice and video and submitting your the recording and your written story. Okay, so you're going to be submitting 2 things, the actual voice recording or video recording. You don't have to do both, just one or the other, and submitting the recording and your written story. I'll clarify that just really quick. So if you're doing a voice recording, so more of a radio drama, quote unquote, style, then you don't have to submit video as well. If you are doing the video, I do want to also hear your voice, okay? And then submitting again the recording and the actual written story, okay?